parents about, because many parents don't know this, and they are really amazed at the ability of their newborn baby to copy something that they've done. So it's a very useful thing to tell parents about. Moving on to 3 months, we get evidence of very rapid learning. Now this isn't one of the traditional milestones, but it's a behavior that's been used in many research studies, extremely important research tool. So here we've got a baby lying in a cot with a mobile. A lot of parents give babies mobiles to look at. Mobile isn't a very interesting toy. It moves, but it doesn't do very much. So after a few days, the baby will lose interest. You can turn that into a really exciting activity. And you do it with a piece of ribbon. Okay, so you tie one end of the ribbon to the baby's ankle and the other end of the ribbon to the mobile, and every time the baby moves and kicks her foot, the mobile will move. And very rapidly, infants learn to control the movement of the mobile. This is a 3-month-old, and you can see he's discovered the connection, he's kicking his leg, and he's getting a lot of fun out of watching this movement. Within 2 minutes, 3-month-old babies will learn to kick very fast to activate the mobile. They get a lot of fun out of this. This baby hasn't got a sense of humor, but most babies will talk, they'll smile, because they're interacting with this activity. Interestingly, this ability has been used to study memory in infants. If you bring the baby back the next day and you don't have the ribbon, but you just show the mobile, he'll start kicking again. He remembers what he learned. And you'll do that for 7 days at 3 months, and then it stops. Very clear. But it's not because memory has been lost. You might think memory is very short-lived at this age. Not true. It's still there. He can't access it. He can't get to the memory. But if you remind him by moving the mobile, he'll start kicking again. And the research has shown you can keep that memory alive for at least a year simply by reminding infants. So it's a very interesting ability that we see at 3 months. But also at 3 months, another landmark milestone, social smiling. And what happens is the baby makes eye-to-eye contact with the parent, and you get a big smile, big beaming smile. A lot of parents say this has a big impact on their relationship with the baby, because for the very first time they think they're actually dealing and actually interacting with a real person, not just something that is going to wake them up all through the night and demands feeding and cleaning, but really it's on an interpersonal level. Now this is an important milestone. You should see this between 3 to 6 months. If parents say baby doesn't smile, doesn't look happy, won't look them in the eye, this is a very early warning sign for the later development of autism. And an infant not showing this behaviour should be tracked and followed, particularly in the 2nd year, to see if there's evidence of autism developing. Also, at 3 months, we have these conversations that occur between parents and an infant. So face to face, they interact in all sorts of ways. Maybe the baby smiles, the mother smiles back, the baby looks at that, laughs, the mother makes a comment, talks to the baby, and so it goes to and fro, exchanging gestures, vocalizations, smiling, and so on. These conversations, we know, are really important in early social development, and they have an effect on later social development. When they go very well, they last for a long period, and they're very intense and pleasurable, then this is associated with the development of better quality of attachment later in the 1st year, around 9 to 10 months. So it's a very early sign that social relationships are developing well, are going to have a good outcome. If they don't, then there is a risk of poor quality attachment and all the consequences for later social relationships in later childhood and even in adulthood. Also, we see at around 3 to 6 months evidence of very rapid visual learning. Babies are looking at their surroundings, and we know they're taking in a huge amount of information. And you can measure how quickly they can process that information by recording how long they spend looking at a picture, in this case projected on a screen. So you can record the amount of time the baby spends looking. Typically what you find is that over successive presentations, looking time gradually decreases. It gets less and less. Now that's not because the baby is falling asleep, it's because the baby has processed the information, is recognizing the picture, and is losing interest, and is looking away for something new. It's called habituation. And we know that there are differences between infants. Some infants lose interest much quicker than others, and these are infants who are processing information at a faster rate. They're learning more. And these are children who, in later childhood, have higher IQ scores because their rate of learning is faster. So we can measure this difference early in infancy. It has implications for later development. Now, when a baby is looking at something, a visual stimulus, a picture, we know their attention goes through 3 different phases. So first, they begin to get interested. They engage their attention. No information is processed, but the baby looks and they begin to get interested. Then we have a key period. This is called sustained attention. The baby is focused on the stimulus, is taking in information. This is when learning takes place. And then finally, attention begins to be released, it's disengaged, and the baby starts to look away. And we can measure these different phases of attention by recording heart rate, because heart rate changes depending upon the phase. So if you take a baseline level, when a baby gets interested and engages attention, heart rate goes down, it decreases. Then it remains at a low level, and that's the period of sustained attention. That's when information is being taken in, learning takes place. And then heart rate returns to the original baseline, and that's disengagement, attention being released. Now, also, moving on to 8 to 9 months, another key landmark milestone. You hide a toy under a cloth cover, under a cup, and you see if the baby will search for it. And this is a 9-month-old, and there's a toy she's seen hidden under the top, and she finds it. She knows exactly how to get her toy back. And we'll do it again. Oh, nice motor skill there. See the hand-to-hand passing, very elegant. So we hide the toy, and she's onto it, and knows exactly where it is. So this is a very important milestone at around 8 to 9 months. It tells us memory is developing, the baby remembers the toy, and also knows how to solve the problem of getting the toy back. So it's a key landmark in development. Also at 8 to 9 months we get evidence of very very elegant use of developing motor skill, handling objects, and engaging focused attention to learn about them. So we call this it's a focused attention, examining behavior, where a baby, instead of picking up a toy and just putting it in her mouth, she'll hold it and then turn it over, exploring what it looks like. They learn a great deal about the properties of objects. You can see this little girl here examining the object she's got in her hand. They take in information, they're learning about the shapes of objects, and infants who engage in this focused attention for longer periods, we know also develop higher IQ scores. And you first begin to see this at around 8 to 9 months. Also at 9 months, we see more complex problem solving. This is an example of a problem solving test that I developed and has been used to study the effects of nutrition on development. If you look at the picture on the left, we take a toy and we put it out of reach on the table, but it's resting on a cloth, on the end of a cloth, and the near edge of that cloth is within reach. And then we hide the toy, we put it under a cover. So to get the toy back, baby's got to do 2 things. It's got to pull the cloth to bring the cover within reach, and then lift off the cover to find the toy. And at 9 months we first see this problem solving emerging. So we set the problem up, and she pulls the cloth, picks up the cover, finds the toy. Really effective problem solving at 9 months. Another little boy, 9 months, pulls the cloth, throws the cover away, doesn't want that. It's the toy that he's after. Problem solving, off with the toy, I'm getting distracted by anything else. It doesn't always work out like that, so the baby on the right is interested. He's really telling me he wants the toy, and look, he starts well, and then something goes wrong, and he stops. And what we think has happened here is it's a breakdown in working memory. He had a plan, he knew what he was going to do, and then he lost it. It went. And the difference between these infants, we think now, is due to rate of development of frontal cortex. This problem solving is controlled by frontal cortex, because babies have to plan ahead, they need to remember what they're going to do, they use working memory, and they've got to avoid getting distracted by all these objects they're handling. Focus on the toy, ignore the cloths. That control of attention is also controlled by frontal cortex. So we're seeing here, we think, differences in the rate of development of frontal cortex. I'm going to skip over this because time is getting on. But moving to the end of the first year, we get another clear landmark developing, and that's the appearance of something called gestures to communicate. One of the first gestures is pointing. Most parents will know the very first time the baby has pointed. It's a very distinctive activity. Babies point for two reasons. They point to things they want to draw your attention to because they're interested in them, and they point also to communicate, to make you do something, to pick up an object, to bring it to them. So it's an early form of communication. It's interesting that the onset, the appearance of the very first point is followed within 2 to 3 weeks by the production of the first word. There's a very tight linkage between the two. Both are driven by this development of ability to communicate. And we also know that babies who produce a greater range of gestures at 12 to 18 months go on to develop better language later in childhood. So it's a very important achievement. There's a whole range of gestures. So babies wave bye-bye, they lift up their hands to be picked up. There's a whole range of gestures that they... Oh, one very common one I'm sure you're familiar with is shaking a head, no. And that's appearing in the second year of life. So there's a whole range of these, but they signal the early development of communication and ability to get a message across. And of course we get the development of language, the first words, a whole range of words, and there are a number of very simple tests of vocabulary which have been developed for use from 12 months onwards. One is the receptive vocabulary test. It's actually adapted from the Bailey. It's part of the new version of the Bailey. You lay out a set of objects, you tell the baby or ask the baby, show me, in this case the cup, and you look to see if the baby looks at the object or reaches for it, recognizes the word. Another is the MacArthur-Bates communication development inventory, which is a parent questionnaire where parents report on the number of words that the baby recognizes and also produces. And it's a very accurate measure of early vocabulary language development. So those are some of the key milestones, and some of these we now know are affected by nutrition and especially L-C-Pufas and DHA. So to promote development in infants, there are two factors at least we need to think about. One is obviously nutrition to support adequate brain growth, but also, that alone isn't sufficient, we need to stimulate development. We need to provide adequate stimulation for infants. And this is a very large topic. There are a lot of things I could say about how to promote and stimulate early development, but I'm going to give you two extremely useful pieces of information to pass on to parents, which we know have a profound effect on later development. Here's the first. I'm just going to skip over this. Here's the first, and it relates to these conversations that we see between parents and their infants starting at around 3 months of age. Now, as I said, often these go very well, but sometimes parents say they don't go well at all. They don't last very long, baby gets upset. So you might find baby doesn't attend to the mother. So the mother turns the baby's head to make the baby look